Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Perspectives in Focus. This is James Hicks. As you know from Hicks New Media, I am thrilled. I'm incredibly excited to have today's conversation. I'm not going to do a whole long intro because I want this man to talk to us about himself. But I will tell you this, Jodey Hogeland. Jodey Hogeland is an evangelist in the enterprise technology industry. He's an industry analyst. He's a subject matter expert. He's a subject matter expert in more than just technology. We're going to talk a little college sports and college football as well, because he knows a little something about that. He spent a lot of time in various roles within specific industries. We could probably talk about the company that we work for, because we work at the same company, but I'll let him divulge that. I'm looking forward to having just a in-depth conversation for the time that I have of getting to know the man behind the microphone, because literally every single day I see him on stage, figuratively on stage now, but giving conversations and talking technology, talking about business practices, talking about strategies for how organizations can move and grow their organizations from a technology perspective. But that's only the surface, right? So I want to get behind the scenes and talk about Jodey Hogeland. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hogeland, how are you, sir?
Hey, brother.
I set you up there a little bit right there. So you're up there on top of the mountain right now. You're the pedestal. You're the guy that everyone wants to see. I don't even know why I'm on camera, to be honest with you. So I should just take myself off screen right now.
Yeah, you're a very flattering man.
Jodey, tell us a little bit. So give us the elevator pitch, man. Again, I said a handful of things, and some of the words that I used were strategically placed. But I tell the folks who don't know you, or the folks who do know you, who you are.
First and foremost, I'm a Christian. I'm a husband. I'm a father of three children, one of which has a disability, one of which plays college football. And one of which is a freshman in high school. So it's a very diverse atmosphere in my household. I'm also a pastor. I've been pastoring a small rural Baptist congregation for over 15 years. I'm a missionary. I've been involved in foreign mission work in the desert in central Mexico, in the jungles of southern Mexico, helped start a school and church for pastors in the Philippines and the southernmost island of Mindanao, which can actually be a very volatile area.
Yeah.
And I think, James, on top of all that, I'm a technologist, right? I love,
in your spare time, right? In your spare time.
I love technology. I've been involved in technology ever since I exited high school. I didn't have a whole lot of options. Growing up, broken home, my father, was escorted out of the house with blue lights and handcuffs when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
Spent 20 years in prison and had a single mom with no education, doing the best she could, cleaning buildings, cleaning toilets for a living. I was scrubbing toilets when I was 5 years old. So all I ever knew was to work. Started my first job at 13. And I was working, up until the day I graduated high school with no options. 4 days later, I was standing on yellow footprints on Parris Island, South Carolina, in the United States Marine Corps. And that really began to formulate a foundation on technology and allowed me the opportunity to pursue technology. Got into satellite communications, satellite intelligence, and then Unix systems and Unix administration. And then, here I am, many years later, as a global technologist for the number one technology company in the world, Dell Technologies, that you somewhat alluded to earlier. And I've been doing this for a while now. And, I really, truly, I mean, my wife and I consistently talk about this. I wake up blessed every day, trying to understand, how did I get to where I am, and, why do I have the opportunities that I have, other than, leaning in on my faith and really, putting pen to paper as far as studies, and and everything really being kind of independently learned. I don't have a college education. I don't have some big elaborate college degree. It's really just come from putting my nose in books and studying and reading and teaching myself how to do things and working hard. And here I am, at Dell Tech as the global evangelist for the number one storage array on the planet right now, right? So
That's good.
It's a fun gig, man.
I love it. So see, there you go, right? So you summed it all up, and now you understand where I say I mentioned some of the words in my opening very strategically. Not just a technology evangelist, but also from the faith. And I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about some of the things that you mentioned as well. But let's dive into some of those humble beginnings, right? Again, starting out in the situations that you were. Where did you get the fortitude to say, you know what, I'm gonna pick myself up from these types of situations. I'm going to follow as straight and narrow of a path as I can. I'm going to eventually get to a point where I am the go-to person for, again, the large 800-pound gorilla in the technology space, to where I'm seen as the subject matter expert, as I'm seen as the industry leader. What was that something that you just had in you innate, or was that something that you just decided that, you know what, I'm going to find a way to rise up from these situations that I was as a youngster?
I mean, it probably boils down to, a little bit of what the Lord instilled in me from birth, just who I am and my character. It's always been what's the best thing. I know I'm not the best thing. But I've been very fortunate to see people around me who are the best thing, and say, okay, if I want to make myself successful, I'm going to glue myself to that person who is the best, and I'm going to try to learn from them as much as I'm going to be like a tick on a dog, man. I'm going to suck as much out of them as I can get, because I want to learn. My grandmother, at an early age, when my father left for prison, my grandmother moved in with my mom to help care for me and my little. I've got a brother that's 5 years my younger, and she moved in, and from there it was really, if you want to eat, then you have to go to work, earn some money to put bread on the table, and that was the focus that my mom had, that my grandmother had, and didn't have a grandfather. Both sides of my family, there's not a lot to them. Most of them died when I was really young, other than my grandmother. But so I didn't have a lot of people surrounding me from that perspective, really just my mom and my grandmother. But I remember when I was about 13, my grandmother telling me, hey, if you want to have a little pocket change, then you're going to have to go to work. And so she took me down. I got a work permit signed by my high school. Went down to the local family grocery store out here in rural Alabama, where I live. And she went in and talked to the manager, and his name was Frank D'Alessandro, Mr. Frank. And she went in and she said, "Hey, Mr. Frank," she said, "I buy all my groceries here. I have for a long time. My grandson needs a job." And so he put me on the payroll. Making not a whole lot of money, going out into the Alabama heat on every single day, pulling buggies in, the grocery carts in, and that's really kind of how it kicked off. But from there, it was just, looking at it, when I was pulling buggies in, right, I would be looking at the cashiers, going, "How do I get to do that job?" Right, and so I would talk to them on my break, and then wound up, by the time I was 16 years old, I moved to a larger grocery chain, and wound up getting a job there, and was able to say, "Hey, look, I've been doing this, and this. I understand this," and got a role as a cashier. So even in technology, I can name names, man. I can name people who I've looked at and looked upon and said, that right there, that man, that woman's the best at what they do. I want to learn from them, because I want to be able to be in that place one day. And it's really just looking at that, surrounding myself with talent and pursuing it.
I love that. Bishop Oliver is here, and he is saying, sounds like Timothy. had his grandmother and mother, women of faith that taught him the faith of God. Appreciate that, Bishop Oliver. See, if you're not streaming right now, Bishop, I might bring you on here a little bit later as well, and have these two titans of the Lord while I just sit back and listen and learn. So Jodey, let me ask you a couple of other things about that, because I'm really intrigued. We'll get to what we do today. I'm not going to have you pull out a whiteboard and do a overview of Power Store and advantages of Power Skill or nothing like that. I'm not going to have you do that. We'll do that tomorrow when we get to work. But talk to me about, again, the things that you learned, the values that you had growing up. Some of the situations and circumstances. Now you've got kids and you got children. How did you go about distilling kind of that work ethic, that frame of mind into your kids as well, right? I mean, just some of the, and not commonplace father parent types of things, but what specifically, I guess, since you grew up with some specific situations, how did you have those conversations with your kids to strive for the best, to be the best, and always kind of focus on the target as opposed to deviating and going about the way of the world, so should I say?
Yeah, United States Marine Corps. There's no people that know me, prior to my enlistment. People that knew me afterwards, and particularly my wife. My wife and I dated in high school. We've been married north of 20 years now. We dated for a little while in high school, parted ways, went our separate ways. I went into the Marine Corps. She put herself through nursing school. She actually comes from a broken home as well. Never knew her father. Her mother was a drug addict. So we both come from nothing, right? There's nothing to be had on either side of the fence for us, right? But going into the Marine Corps, literally the day that I flew home, spent 4 years on active duty, flew in, spent the last well over a year in Okinawa, Japan. Flew in literally the day I got back to Birmingham. My mom picked me up, brought me home. I was over visiting a neighbor, and my mom called the neighbor's house and said, "Hey, you got to come home. Someone's coming by to see you." And she wouldn't tell me who it was, but long story short, it was my wife. We had actually remained friends. I was friends with some of her family, and she stayed friends with my mom. But she had called just out of the blue randomly, and just to check in on my mom. My mom said, "Oh, you need to swing by for a visit." And she wound up, we had, some pretty extensive conversations, hanging out together and rekindling old flames. And, she told me, she said, you're not the same person that you were 4 years ago. Wow. That's for sure.
Wow.
And that really changed me. The Marine Corps did change my life very impactfully. Really instilled a focus, really pinpoint precision on what do I want to do? How do I want to achieve it? My Marine Corps career, although short, was very successful. Within 4 years, I was able to obtain E5, the rank of sergeant, which, if you're familiar with the Marine Corps in particular, making non-commissioned officer, particularly making E5 in sub 4 years is very difficult to do. Mm-hmm. But I was put up on a meritorious board, was selected meritoriously for a promotion to corporal. So that actually advanced, but that lies that focus of saying, okay, here's an objective. What do I have to do to get there? And then putting in the work, right? And then literally while everybody else is, maybe they're going out and going to the clubs or going partying or doing whatever. Yeah. Jodey's in the barracks, studying,
reading his manuals,
and books.
Yeah. I love that. So we've got a very similarity right there, and I'm actually glad. I think my dad is still watching. He may be dual streaming. I know church is happening right now, and he saw the notification that I was going online. But let me ask you, were you at Butler?
In Okinawa?
Yeah. How do I know that? Actually, no. So let me let you answer.
Somebody's got some Marine Corps ties. I was not on Butler. I was at Marine Corps Air Station Fatima. And actually that is like literally 5 minutes from Butler. It's just right down the road.
And the reason I say that, military family as well. My dad was in the Air Force for 26 years, and we were stationed on Kadena. We were stationed. We were at Kadena. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I came in or left, it was via Kadena.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He was part of the social actions team, actually repairing and fixing all of the planes there. So. And he is watching. There you go. There's my plug for you. There you go. Check. I got my dad plug in. So that's pretty good stuff. But do you think that by going from high school directly into the service as opposed to going to college, do you think that rigor, that training, that focus on that disciplinary, again, mode was more advantageous than, again, going the traditional 4-year route or whatever to go into some college? Do you think that, would you be the same person if you went to a traditional 4-year school as opposed to enlisting in the service?
I don't think I would. No. And I feel like I can say that pretty immediately, for the simple fact that, when you go to college, I got a son in college now. And even my daughter, who has a disability, she's the eldest, by the way.
Okay.
She's to be 21 here soon, and she's actually part of a special program at the University of Alabama. And so I got 2 kids that are in college. But that environment of college, you have to be very disciplined from an independent perspective. Unless you have someone, a family member, a father, or someone who can make sure that you stay on the rails. Mm-hmm. There's so much freedom in that arena that, you don't get up on time. There's nobody that's going to correct that. They're just going to say, okay, you fell. And, you just paid a bunch of money for nothing. Right. So going into Marine Corps, it established that foundation of someone really showing me what discipline actually is. And what discipline means to being successful in life. Because without waking up in the morning with some form of motivation, without some form of understanding that you have a purpose that day, and that you need to check certain boxes, right? Mm-hmm, and those boxes are what enables you to be successful throughout that day. The Marine Corps gave me that foundation and surrounded me with people who constantly, let's just put it, they encouraged me or motivated me to make the proper decisions.
Yeah. Go out there and hit that hill or run 80 miles and then come back and do it again, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I remember, like in boot camp, I can remember, walking around, even going through the chow hall line, getting a tray of food and a beverage, and then having to put your hand over the top of the beverage and walk through the chow hall line with that covered up. And I'm like, what is the point? And then eventually, you start having conversations, and the drill instructors start giving you a little bit more info, and that everything has a purpose. And kind of, that structuring you and training you for dealing with sensitive things and how you carry certain things like grenades, which, it's okay, whatever, I know it's a grenade. I'm going to be careful with that thing, right? But everything has a purpose, man. And so that's what I really tried to focus in with my kids. I think my kids going to college is different because, I'm there now to provide that guidance, that discipline, that structure, that focus. If I would have jumped off from an independent perspective and went down that path, first of all, that wasn't an option for me, other than there was no scholarship, there was no money, there was nobody to say, hey, yeah, we're going to help you go to school. I would have been one of these students, which, by the way, there are many of today, that are working and paying for semester by semester by semester, which is a very tedious thing to do. And I just don't think that I would have had the fortitude, the guidance, and the discipline to make a decision like that at that time.
Well, I will say that you did the right thing. You did the best thing for you, and it resonates in every engagement, every interaction that I have with you. And I was telling you before we went online, all the folks that have reached out to me saying, "Hey, you talking to Jodey today?" So The discipline, the fortitude, the training, all of those great adjectives definitely are paying off. I must put this up there as well. My dad is a huge advocate for veterans getting their benefits and making sure that they get everything that they're eligible for. So I'm sure you're on top of that, but I definitely wanted to put that up there as well.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. There's so many options for vets that many things that people don't even realize and recognize. But I'm definitely grateful for a lot of there's a lot of folks out there that do veterans advocacy. In fact, every now and then, Dell Technologies, here's a good plug for Dell. They'll award us the opportunity to give back and provide contributions to charities of our choice. And I'm grateful that in that list of selections that we have options for are many different veteran services, like, whether it be for homeless vets or other things that veterans need. And I'm always quick to sponsor those events or contribute to those opportunities.
That is true. I do like that. But we work for a pretty cool look. All right, Uncle Mike, you're doing a good job. We'll throw you a plug there.
Yeah, definitely no complaints.
So let's pivot on that and go to that. Throughout the day, Monday through Friday, and maybe even some weekends, and now with COVID, all day and all night, you stand on stage and you talk about enterprise technology, and you talk about how businesses can solve business challenges and opportunities and take advantage of the wide portfolio of Dell Technologies. It sounds like I give this speech every day too, right? I mean, but talk to me about that, right? I mean, because every single time, literally, that you present, it's almost like it's a completely different story. You're telling the same story almost every day, but every time that I hear it, it's a different story. It's almost like you don't rehearse, because you don't have to rehearse it, right? Because you live it, you know it, and you believe it. I think that's what I'm trying to say. You believe it. How did you get to the point of being so comfortable telling such a complex story, right, to folks who maybe not are always interested in hearing what you have to say, right? So we talk Dell, but they may be more interested in hearing the Pure story. They may be more interested in hearing the HP story, or whatever the case may be. How do you? Where did you get that stage presence, right? To whereas you're incredibly engaging, incredibly personable. Again, was that something that maybe the service taught you? Is that something that you read some books on, or is that just Jodey Hogeland growing up? Look, I'm the guy that likes to be in front of people talking.
That's just me, man. I've always been somebody who likes to talk, likes to carry on a conversation, likes to lead from the front and lead by example. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty and reach down and actually do the work that needs to be done. And when you do that, when you do the work that needs to be done, you get intimately familiar with what you're talking about, right? And so it gives you an opportunity to have conversations that are very relatable, because you're not just speaking in theory, you're speaking in practicum. You've actually put these things to practice. You've actually done these things. You put your hands on things. I've been a systems administrator. I've helped run a data center. I've helped orchestrate, purchases and decision making in a large scale enterprise. I've worked for, a couple of different major enterprise storage vendors and technology companies. I've evaluated other players in the industry, and as you know, James, I do a lot of heavy lifting with our global competitive intelligence team, and working to understand not just my stuff, but what's everybody else's stuff doing. And so I think that just comes as a natural overflow of getting down and actually, understanding things, trying to figure things out, and then, being able to explain it. I think the being able to explain it part is probably the most critical. And that probably comes to the fact that I'm a simple-minded guy, man. There's a lot of folks, they call me the redneck storage guy, and I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, as they say, but I want to make sure that when I'm having a conversation, regardless of what the context is, if it's technology, if it's something else, I want to make sure that people understand it, right? And that it's relatable. And I can recall years ago now, the first time I ever really remember, I think, James, you put it well, of this, stage presence, kind of commanding an audience type deal. As an evangelist, that's kind of, part of what comes with the territory. But I can remember, I remember the moment that I realized that was really a thing. And it happened in my previous life at a storage company, a big technology company called NetApp. And I was a systems engineer for the southeastern United States. It was me and an account rep. We were beating the bushes and trying to make a living together. And we were given the opportunity at a quarterly briefing meeting, in what we call QBRs. We were at a QBR, and we were each, as a team, we were having to give our presentations. And I stood up and was giving my presentation on our technology and what we were doing, but I related it to a lesson that my grandmother had taught me. And when that session was over and we came off, the stage, everyone in our district was coming up saying, dude, man, I'd never, that was excellent. Like the way that, people can understand that. Right. And so it's really looking at my life experiences and trying to figure out ways. Those are not unique to me, right? Those are things that everybody does day in and day out in their life.
Yeah.
Well, how do you take these complex things in life, technology or whatever else, and how do you bridge those, let's just call it the hermeneutical gap? How do you close that gap to say, here's this real thing, here's this life lesson thing, here's this very difficult concept, and how do we bridge that together to come to an understandable meaning? And that's just something that the Lord's enabled me to be able to do.
It's not easy, right? I mean, and many of us watch masters and geniuses like you do it. The art of storytelling. That's what I kind of boil it down to, right? Again, just being able to be relatable and not wanting or actually admitting that you're not the smartest person in the room. I always say I don't want to be the smartest person in the room, because then I'm in the wrong room, right? And every time you see, I move I talk about, I call it the jazz hands, right, brother? Every time I'm in front doing a AVC or a QBR or whatever the case may be, and having those conversations, I emote as well. And I think just doing that shows that you relate to what you're talking about. You take it serious. You have some passion about it. I miss a lot of that right now because, again, we're having to do it all via Zoom and via Teams and things like that. So I'm missing that aspect of actually walking around a conference room, laying hands on someone as I'm talking, making sure that they understand the concepts and things like that. Hopefully we all get back to that before much longer. But I do want to just pause and commend you just on having that ability to story tell very complex situations, make it relatable, and as my pastor would say, make it plain. So yeah. I love that. So let's now go into some of that. Right? Tell me and tell the folks about the Expositors. How do you say the first word? Expositors International Ministry.
Expositors International. That's
You might have to put a comma in there or something, or a hyphen. EIM. Talk to us a little bit about EIM. I'm gonna give you a 3-letter acronym.
Yeah. So there's a man named Barry Carpenter, Dr. Barry Carpenter. He and I became friends. It's been many years ago now, through a local Bible conference up in North Alabama that I had been frequenting with some other men in my church, and came across some folks that knew this, Brother Barry. And so I wound up meeting up with him, and we started having a lot of conversations. And he was pastoring even in a more rural area of Alabama than I was, than I am, and that's saying something. Right? If you don't if you don't tote water up, you don't flush the toilets. Ladies
and gentlemen, you heard it right here. If you don't tote water up, you don't. God. Yeah. Let me just drop that on.
It's out there, man. But Brother Barry, if I'm out there, he's way out there. And you put your sunshine orders in advance, to get them out there. But he and I, kindled a friendship. And he told me one day, he said, "Look, Jodey, I'm selling everything and I'm moving to the Philippines. He had been working via online,
Mm-hmm.
a remote seminary, which is a Bible college.
Mm-hmm.
He had been doing this web-based Bible college for several of these men on the island of Mindanao in the southern Philippines.
Okay.
And if you're familiar with the Philippine island chain, up in the north, you have Luzon. That's where Manila. That's most people are familiar with that area. Then you have Versailles in the middle, some smaller areas, and then you have on this large island on the southernmost end of the chain called Mindanao. And it can be a pretty tough area. And he said, "Yeah, I'm moving to Mindanao to work with these brothers there." And the reason for that was he was experiencing some challenges with the web-based curriculum and teaching. As soon as he would go through and have the different classes and sessions, he found out that there were some people in person there in the Philippines that were sowing discord and creating confusion amongst the brothers there. And he said, "You know what? This isn't just working. It's just not working." And so he, felt led and made the decision that he was moving there, and he did. He packed up everything, literally everything he owned went in a suitcase, and he took him and his suitcase to Cagayan de Oro in Mindanao, Philippines, and moved there. And so that was a very interesting, move. Shortly thereafter, it was me and a couple of friends that began to go over and visit with him to try to figure out, okay, how could we help, being, as remote as we were, and what contributions could we make? And so it was really just, supporting him remotely, kindling that friendship. We'd go over to visit. So literally flying over there, meeting with the brothers. They're starting, churches there. So it's equipping these Filipino brothers, to be commissioned as pastors, in their area, in their towns, in their cities. And so, just most people, I think, in the United States, there's a lot of taken for granted of what we have access to.
Yeah.
Just think of books, as an example. We want a book. We don't really think anything about it. We jump down to a bookstore, we jump on Amazon, we jump online, and within a few days, we have this, 5-pound volume showing up on our doorstep. Well, in a remote area of an island chain like the Philippines, it's not just that you don't have immediate access to shipping. The cost to ship something of that nature is astronomical. And it's astronomical because you're not even guaranteed that it's going to get there. You don't just walk out and say, "Hey, here's my address," and you have a validated, certified, postal service that's going to deliver something to you.
Right.
Half the time things are stolen, before they ever make it to you. So these were a lot of logistical challenges that were facing him. So it was really working alongside of him, supporting him through prayer, working to support him financially, helping by going. I'll never forget one brother in the faith many years ago. He was a missionary on the African continent. And he said he was there with some brothers and sisters one time in a war-torn region. He said they sat on a hillside watching the smoke rise up out of one of the local towns from a civil war. And he said the brother leaned over and put his arm around him sitting on his hillside. And he said, "I just want to thank you." And he said, thank me for what? And he said, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have anything to really offer you. And he said, "You came." And he said that meant more, to them, to those brothers and sisters in Christ. That meant more than sending a check, than just writing a check. Because there's a lot of people that'll, throw money in a plate. There's a lot of people that'll write a little check and send a little bit of money. But when you're devoted enough to get on an aircraft and to spend, 30 hours in transit, and then, spend a week or 2 weeks or more of your life, with no hot water, with no amenities, subjecting yourself to what, our brothers and sisters abroad, this is daily life for them. And it says a lot, when we're willing to set aside those comforts that we know at home, and to simply invest in somebody and be there with them. And that's part of, what I long to do in my support of Expositors International and Brother Barry as he's working and training and equipping pastors there.
You literally just gave me an aha moment, right? Because for a while, I'd always thought and wondered, right? Why a lot of times we would go, we from America would go to other regions of the world and address their needs, right? Ship food all over the place, go out in ministry all over the place, as opposed to focusing on the 50 United States. But the thing that you said was that you're never really sure of what you're going to get. We take it for granted, the fact that, again, I literally ordered some stuff off of Amazon yesterday and it came today, Sunday, right? It showed up about 30 minutes ago. The ease of consumption that we have and the ease of access and capabilities. A lot of times we take that for granted. And just the fact that you mentioned that, again, someone just wants to order a book about whatever the case may be. They want to order a brand new Bible, right? And they live in the Philippines. They live in the corners of Africa. They live wherever. You're not guaranteed to get it. You don't know what's going to happen. It may get caught up in shipping. It may get caught up in border patrols or whatever the case may be, or might be stolen, like you were saying. And that really resonated with me just now. And it's actually slightly profound here. I mean, just again, I have a different view and different perspective in terms of, I've always thought, we definitely need to take care of all of our brothers and sisters. But again, just not having that immediate access or not having those abilities that we, again, maybe get comfortable and take for granted in such a rich in consumption and capability and ability country as we live in right now. So bless you for that, and I appreciate you for that. I got more out of that just now than you may think, brother. I must say,
Brother Barry, he had a brilliant idea, and this was years ago.
Yeah,
this was cutting edge back in the day. But he took these little Android-based tablets that are, for us, they less than $100 or something.
Yeah.
And he would load. They got a pretty good amount of memory in them, and he would load those up with PDFs of free, openly distributable, biblical resources and content. So Bible translations, theological resources, theological study tools, all kind of stuff. I mean, literally, it would cost you thousands of dollars, to first of all acquire those resources. Nonetheless, ship them to some remote location and guarantee their arrival. That's just not going to happen. But Barry could take, these small, cheap tablets, load them up with the resources these brothers needed, in these areas, and just drop them off, just handle, right? And they had an entire, if I could pan my camera around, you'd see bookshelves just, to the brim. But these brothers, would literally live and die by these, small little tablet devices that had, an entire master's and doctoral level degrees worth of content, on them.
Wow, that's incredibly profound. And again, like I say, I have gained more just in that 10 minutes there than you can probably imagine. So let me ask this: how's it going? Right, so 14 months or so, the world has stopped, right? In terms of, obviously, you haven't been able to go back within that period of time. But what are some of the next steps that you see for the missionary work that you're doing with those brothers, right? I mean, as the world starts opening up, you're seeing more churches being open, you're seeing more pastors being ordained, things of that nature. Or how's it been over this past lockdown period and opposed to what you got planned for coming up in the future?
Yeah, I mean, the Lord's work hasn't stopped, man.
Right there. Hold on.
Yeah.
Say, hold on. Let me stop. Say that one more time.
The Lord's work hasn't stopped, man. Despite the challenges, that we face, in this world, there is no rogue atom. There is no, rogue molecule upon the planet. From my perspective and within the context of my faith, God is sovereign over all things. And it's clear in Scripture that God is in control of every single aspect. That all things work together for good to those who are called according to His purpose, and all things work together for good. That means even the most trying and difficult of circumstances. If we're faced with a global pandemic, okay, that's not new. And I think that's where I find my peace and my comfort, is the fact that this is, we're not in times or situations that caught the Lord off guard. He's like, whoa, what happened here, right? So these are things that are under, his ordination and orchestration. And for us, we're just simply called to do one thing, despite the trials, the difficulties, and that one thing is be faithful. And that is a principle for me that not only applies to the faith, but it applies to life in general. My employer, be faithful. They're giving me a check, right? They're paying me well to do what I do, so I have a responsibility, to be faithful. To my wife, I have a responsibility to be faithful. To my children, to be faithful. That is a simple one-word statement that can be applicable to every aspect of your life, that you're called to be faithful, to do what you know is right. We have a saying in my family. We have a family motto, believe it or not. You can ask my children, and it's very simple and straightforward, but love God, follow Jesus, do what's right. That sums up, our family, is to love God, follow Jesus, and do what's right. Do what's right in every circumstance. Do what's right by every individual. Always strive to do the right thing.
Brother, I was waiting for somebody to come in with some comments, because Lord, we didn't go into church right now. I'm looking for my wallet so I can put something in the offering plate, because that was beautiful. And see, that's what I wanted to. I wasn't leading you towards that direction, but I wanted to hear some of the context, and I'm actually humbled that a lot of folks are also getting to hear that as well. Because again, I hear you and I see you every day, and when I log on to a session that you're leading, I come in the back and I heckle, and I'm with the Roll Tide, and so I'm throwing you all off kilter trying to, but there's so much to the man. There's so much to the drive and the mission and the purpose, and the fact that everything is rooted in faith, family, love, service, right? I mean, that's what I take back when someone asks me, give the Jodey Hogeland elevator pitch. Who is he? And that's what I say about the guy. I mean, this is the guy. Look,
it's funny, man. There's to go back to a previous career life. There's a dear friend and brother, a guy named Reese Stewart. He actually works for one of our major competitors.
Okay.
Now, and he lives down in Florida. He's outside of Tampa. He's a great guy, though. We're still the best of friends, even remotely to this day. He was actually up here it's been years ago. You probably remember I'm trying to remember what the exact scenario was, why he was here at that time. But it was one of the ice storms that come through the South, which is like, it just obliterates us. Like we don't have the means to deal with those circumstances, particularly with ice. It just, there's no salt trucks. Stuff doesn't exist. But he and I were together. We were on the interstate. And we were driving back, and in front of us, several hundred yards, there was a Ford Mustang that went into a spin, slammed into a wall, started smoking. I immediately pulled over, bailed, went running over to the car, was trying to get the door open to get this individual. I didn't know if the car was going to catch on fire or because there was smoke bowling out of this thing, and I'm thinking, I got to get whoever's in here. We got to get them out. Yeah. The door was jammed, and I'm snatching on the door. Finally got the door open. Realized, the individual was okay. They were banged up, a little rattled, definitely rattled.
Right.
But Reese, I think it was him. He was either taking pictures or videoing or something. But a while later, Reese told me he was given a presentation somewhere, and was talking about always doing what's right. And he posted pictures of that event, right, of that circumstance, and he used me as an illustration to say, despite what's going on around you, taking the time to do the right thing. And that wasn't a testament to me. That's a testament to where the Lord has carried me and enabled me. Because I'll tell you this, James, Jodey Hogeland is a selfish individual. I really, I have to lean upon my faith and my trust in God for the Lord to grant me humility and humbleness, because I want to look out for myself as much as the next guy.
Right.
But the reality is, I know that that's not the right thing, and I know that's not the right thing because that's not what Scripture teaches. It is better for me that I depart, Paul said, but for the sake of you, it's better that I stay. Right? So,
yes, love that. Yes, that's true. Oh my God, that's so true. Wow. I just lost what I was going to say because I was getting into. Let me ask about this. Your kids going to school now. You got one playing football. How's that going?
It's going well.
It's going to come back to me what I had in my mind because I was so ingrained in the conversation that I was literally just enjoying the moment. But I wanted to ask this before I let you go for sure.
No, yeah. So my kids are. Let me start with Josie. She's the oldest. She'll be 21 this year. She has Down syndrome. For those that don't know. Just an incredible young woman. Mm-hmm. She's been extremely blessed. In fact, when my wife had one of her first sonograms when she was pregnant with her, there was a complication that showed up on the sonogram. And we had pictures, like physical evidence of this, what they call double bubble syndrome or duodenal atresia. And so if you're a doctor or something, you probably know what I'm talking about. I had no clue. I just know this is what they pointed at on the sonogram. But they said, hey, look, we don't understand the correlation, but there's a high percentage of children that have this that are born with Down syndrome. And my wife and I are like, well, that makes no difference, to me one way or the other. This is my daughter. And actually, we didn't even know if it was a boy or girl. We kept that a secret until she was born.
Nice.
That's when we found out. But she's born June 28th of 2000. July the 4th. She's fine. She's healthy. We asked the doctors, hey, this thing on the X-ray, they said they were going to have to do surgery. They said, no, that's not there. Like, there's no problems. Like, she's fine. And I'm like, oh, well, that's a blessing. Right. Well, July 4th, we get a phone call. Said we need to come down to the hospital to the neonatologist office. And he sits down and says, we did blood tests, chromosome tests. Your daughter has trisomy 21, has Down syndrome. And it was, my wife she blanked. I mean, she didn't lose consciousness, but man, I could tell she wanted out.
Yeah.
And at that point, training kicked in. I said, okay, I got an objective. My objective is to get my wife home safely right now. So I went into focus mode, got her home. I wound up sitting in my garage that day, July 4th, 2000. Running through life plays, man. My daughter will never graduate high school. She'll never know what it's like to have a date. She'll never go get invited to the prom. She'll never, like, all of these things she'll never do. And I was devastated. Locked myself in the garage, crying my eyes out. And I had some family there that surrounded me and encouraged me. And, then Josie begins to grow and begins to thrive. And, by the time she's getting a little older, we wound up moving. She was born in Mississippi. We moved back to the state of Alabama and lived particularly in Tuscaloosa County because there was this special program at the university called the RISE program. College football, most people know the name Gene Stallings. He's got a national championship under his belt at Alabama. Gene Stallings' son, John Mark Stallings, had Down syndrome. And he was a big contributing founder and member of this RISE school at Alabama. And so we moved into the county so that my daughter could be a part of that program. And she really began to grow and thrive. She graduated that program. She went into, went into elementary school, went into middle school, went into high school. By the time she gets to high school, man, I was really having to eat a lot of crow because my daughter, where I said she could not, she did.
Yes.
She was voted homecoming queen by her senior class. She was voted prom queen by her senior class. She was invited to be, to be a representative of the state of Alabama at the AutoZone Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Tennessee, her senior year as a homecoming queen.
Wow.
She was out on the 50-yard line with the four tops, at Memphis Tiger Stadium, head to toe in this white gown, elegant as all get out. And then, she gets accepted into this college program. And dude, I'm telling you, man, where I imposed all of these limits, she just blew life out of the water, man. And she's still doing it to this day. My youngest son coming up, he actually early on was diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. He was a little bit of a challenge, growing up. Fifth day of, I don't even think it was a week, man. It's like 3-4 days into kindergarten, we get a phone call like he's suspended, and I'm like, how does that happen? Like,
he's supposed to be out there on the monkey bars and on the swings, and what has happened?
And dude, it was rough, man. And we went through a little rough patch there with him, but it was really then discipline, really focusing in from a disciplinary perspective and giving him some guidance. And he was 8 years old. He was taking medicine and, all the typical, hey, calm him down kind of medicines.
Yeah.
And he said, Dad, he said, can I play football? And I said, son, we're from Alabama. There's only a couple of things we know how to do. And
watch out now. This is what we do.
Yeah. I said, yeah, by God, you can play football. And so I told my wife, I said, let's take him off this medicine. Cause he just, he would kind of zone out. He would relax and he just was real lethargic. We took him off that medicine, brother. And, the boy just, he put on a helmet, he put on pads, he got ran over the first day of pads at practice, 8 years old. He got train wrecked. I mean, he lined up on a kid that had been playing for a couple of years. Yeah. And the kid just ran slap over him. And I pulled him aside. I said, son, he was crying, spitting, gagging, and I said, son, one of two things here. I said, you can be the hammer doing the hitting on the nail, or you can be the nail and keep taking the beating. And he looked at me and he said, Daddy, I want to be the hammer. And dude, he never got ran over again. Never. And he excelled in little league ball, started playing high school ball, made the varsity squad in his 8th grade year, was starting his freshman year. He's about almost 6'3", 200 pounds, 4'5", 40. He's a big kid. He's fast. He's mean. He's aggressive. We thought, and everybody, analysts, and we had a lot of folks working with us in the recruiting process that figured he was going to land at a Division I program, and it never came to fruition. And he's now at an NAIA program in Montgomery, Alabama, Faulkner University, which, to be quite honest, James, is probably the best case scenario for him as a football player and as just as an individual and as a student. He wound up from being suspended into kindergarten to graduating with a 4.3 GPA and getting football money, football scholarship to go play ball. In his first semester at college, he made president's list with straight A's. As a freshman, he's earned a starting spot on special teams.
Wow.
He's a leader on the team. He's a leader on the field, off the field. He's heads down in his studies, and he's pursuing a doctorate degree as part of a specialized program at Faulkner University, where he can get his doctorate in about 6 years. And that being the case, because of COVID, get this, James, because of COVID, all these kids playing football, whether it's NCAA or NAIA this year, it's a free year for them. which means that my son, if he stays at Faulkner pursuing his doctorate, he can play football through his entire doctoral program, brother.
Love that.
So, where we don't see things coming, the Lord does, and we just kind of have to ride these waves sometimes because we don't know where they're taking us.
I love that. Man. Okay, so I need to get a jersey. I need to get something signed. I need to know when the games are being played, so I can make sure to root on Brother Hogeland when he's out there not knocking fools down.
He's fun to watch.
I love that. The thing that I remember, and I wrote it down, so just digress, and I want to be cognizant of your time, sir. But and you mentioned something. So one of the key things I'm focusing on personally as a personal goal for this year, this calendar year, is men's health. Right, men's health, and the ability for men to have conversations about awkward situations, awkward conversations, right? To to emote more, to talk about feelings, to talk about what really matters, as get pride out of the way, right? And have the conversations that really resonate, that really matter. So taking care of mind, body, spirit, soul, finance, taking care of all of those aspects of one's life. And your statement about being selfless, right? And wanting to have stuff, right? Wanting to have things for Jodey and wanting to, have whatever, the latest laptop, the latest car, the latest whatever, and having to really reassess and adjust for needs at hand, things outside of oneself. Give me some ideas, some best practices, some ideas of how I can take that message out to some other folks that I'm engaging with as well, right? I mean, you're telling that to folks that you engage with on a regular basis, but some ideas for getting men specifically, again, to just rise up and understand that there's more important things than just the commercialism. There's more important things than just stuff. And how to really stand up and actually be more open with conversations, feelings, and engagement and things like that. You kind of understand where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And, especially for young men that are growing up in today's culture and in today's society, unfortunately, there's not a lot of guidance. And there's a lot of self-seeking and self-centeredness, that it's all about me. What do I want, and how do I achieve what I want? And sometimes, you have to take a look around and see those that have been put in your sphere of influence. And you need to be very cognizant of those opportunities that you've been given to impact and invest in the lives of others. Just this morning, a young woman at our church, she was talking to my wife and talking about when her children were little, there would be days where she would be discouraged or kind of fraught because the kids were giving her fits or whatever. And she says, "Hey, we're going to be at church on Sunday, and you're going to have a conversation with Pastor Jodey." And it just, well, yeah, they lock them up, right? They just, they didn't want to have that conversation. And it's not, I'm not putting my hands on children, but I'm not opposed to having a very stern conversation, with them either, to make sure that they understand the value of respecting their parents, to understand the value of what it means to be presentable, as an individual, as a young man or a young woman, and setting boundaries and setting proper guidelines. And I think as we have the opportunity, James, to invest in the lives of those who have been placed around us, first of all, we have to be aware. I think as men, we need to be very cognizant that I guarantee you, if you look to your left or to your right, there is a young man that you can invest in, and taking that opportunity to say, let me, hey, instead of, hanging out in my garage working on my car this weekend, or instead of, remoting myself out into the wilderness, for 3 days of self-retreat, what if I take that young man along on a fishing trip? What if I take that young man on a hunting trip? Or what if I, take that young man and work in the garage, with him, and evaluate and teach some life lessons. So, for me, man, it's really, investing in the lives of those that are around us, and being very generous with the gifts that we've been blessed with. And I guarantee you, you can't outgive God. It'll pay itself dividends. I don't, you never want to get, too deep into the financial side of the house. And, I know those are very private matters. They are for me and they are for everybody. But my wife and I, a long time ago, committed, to giving faithfully, not just to our local church, right, but to, mission organizations. We didn't even get into, I've been doing work in the jungles in Mexico for 10 years. But, there's a lot that goes out, financially, and I am not hurting to put bread on my table. And when you think that, that self-centeredness, when it takes over and says, well, I need to do this for myself. Do you really? Wow. And look around you, and, take those opportunities, carpe diem, man, seize the day, to invest in the life of somebody else.
You just talked yourself hopefully into another session with whatever I got to do to get you back, because I want to continue that conversation, and I want to talk about the things you're doing in Mexico. So I apologize for bouncing back and forth. Right, we were talking about one thing, but I had that on my heart, and I really wanted to make sure that got addressed. But I would love to have you back to have an even deeper conversation about that, right? About some life strategies, life goals. Again, we're not talking about what we do on a day-to-day basis, because again, that's just so little that really makes up who and what we are, right? There's so many different facets. There's so many different drawers in the chest of what makes up each of us individually, and folks only see one slice or one aspect of that, and there's so much more richness. Again, I'm being selfish because I've gained so much insight, just really in terms of how I'm going to proceed with some of my actions. You've cleared up some slight confusion or some misconnotations that I had. Again, when I mentioned about let's take care of the folks in Alabama, in Georgia, in Virginia first. Oh, but you know what? Folks over here don't have the access to all of these things on a readily basis. We need to take care of all of our brethren. So that's profound with me, and I'm definitely going to take that with me moving forward, and be more giving, not just of time but of resource as well. So that's good stuff. I'd be remiss, we're both technologists, if I didn't end with this question right here. What's that one piece of technology in your room, in your office, in your domain that you simply can't live without?
Well, that changes probably on a every couple of month basis. But right now, Simplify, Bishop Donald. I see the little pop up there.
Yes.
The current piece of technology, man, would be my Wacom Cintiq Pro tablet.
Well, you use that every single day, right?
Yeah, I use it as a dual display. Look, I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many people have watched me present, in a Zoom session online or doing something, because if you've seen me present, I'm constantly I'm drawing on slides, I'm flipping to a whiteboard, I'm doing a lot of dynamic stuff. And I've had people call it, man, how do you do that on your laptop? Why? And I'm like, yeah, there's a secret. I'm not doing it on my laptop. That Wacom device, man, in today's climate of Zoom, fatigue, that to me is probably the one thing that I would not want to do without on a daily basis right now. It's a brilliant aspect of technology. I see it as a question of the Wacom tablet. So let me see if I can manipulate my camera and show you.
Look at this right here. So you got the big one too. So that you don't have the little guy. That's the.
No, yeah, I've got the 16-inch Cintiq Pro, and I've got it set up. It basically acts as a dual display, secondary monitor. For those that are not in the technology space, just think of it as, hey, that guy's got two monitors going.
Yeah.
Well, that second monitor for me, I can stretch my display over to there, and it actually has a stylus. That device, the Wacom tablet, is actually designed for graphic artists. It's meant to be able to draw and write on, and so I'm using it in like less than 1% of its capabilities because I'm not
and blowing everyone away every single time you fire it up.
But that's the one thing, man, that I would not want to do without right now.
No, so
Pastor, it is connected.
Pastor Bishop is also he does all of his services via live stream as well. So how he and I connected was we're doing some. There's a couple of platforms on the PC side. There's one called vMix, and I use a platform called Ecamm for multi-streaming. So he's breaking it down, getting technical, asking about NDI versus like USB or anything of that nature. Yeah. So right now, so you've probably got that plugged into your laptop and using as a secondary display using USB-C. Is that how you're
it's
stretching?
It's in a mini HDMI port.
Okay.
So it's hooked up HDMI basically.
I love it. Yeah.
But there's several connection options on the device. But if you're using it, Simplify. That's why I keep getting the Simplifies from him. He's a Marine.
Yes.
Yeah. This device, like if you're wanting, right now I could be reaching over, taking notes. I could be writing things, or hey, I want to show you. Hey, let me draw that out for you real quick. Some people are visual learners, right? And I've learned that's part of my storytelling is some people are audible learners. Some people are visual learners. That some people have to read and write, in order to comprehend something. But for those that are visual, I'm trying to hit all spectrums of the learning catalog, right, as I'm presenting, to try to impact people. And that's one of the useful tools.
Well, you do it. And I will say you do it very effectively. And which is why, again, there was so much chatter ahead of time about so I gained more LinkedIn followers just by putting out the fact that I'm talking to Jodey, and half of them work at Dell with us, which is pretty cool. I love this, and Jodey, I'd really be honored if you would come back once again and have another conversation, because again, I want to have. I've been striving to have these types of conversations with folks. I've been striving to have these types of conversations again with men of influence. And I would rather talk about things that resonate, things that matter, as opposed to just things of less significance. Right. So I love talking about spirituality. I love talking about taking care of, again, mind, body, spirit, soul. I love talking about that, and especially talking about how men can improve and be better and be more present in their lives, and especially in their families. Brother, you're amazing, and I appreciate you for everything that you do. I appreciate you for your mission. I appreciate you for your work. We thank you for your service as a Marine. And we thank you for your ability to, as I say it again, make it plain.
Well, hey, man, I am grateful for you. I'm grateful for your friendship, for your abilities, to broadcast and put something like this on. And so, you obviously have some very, very nice talents, and the Lord's kindled a friendship here. And brother, I'm grateful for it.
Thank you, sir. Be good. I'll talk to you soon. I'll probably talk to you tomorrow. Later, Jodey.
All right. Be good, man.